If you've been placed under a no contact order or you have an injunction that's been granted against you, you have to be very careful not to come into contact with the person that the no contact order is against or that has an injunction against you. So a no contact order is essentially an order in a criminal case where the judge has said, because this person is listed as a victim or a witness in your case, you're not allowed to have contact with them as a part of your pretrial release conditions. Meaning that if you come into contact with that person intentionally or unintentionally and you don't remove yourself from their presence, your bond can be revoked and you will sit in jail for the duration of your case until your case is totally resolved. That will also put you in a position where it's going to be more difficult to resolve your case because the appearance that you are still trying to break the law after you've already been charged with a crime is obviously not a good one. In the case of an injunction, that's slightly different because an injunction is a civil order. However, violations of injunction are crimes. And so if you then come into into contact with that person who has an injunction against you, then you can be charged with a crime and put in jail for violating that no contact order under the injunction. So most injunctions or no contact orders are going to give you very specific instructions on what you can and cannot do. I'll give you today some general parameters that are typically included in those, but you should not rely on my advice today to determine what's in your no contact order. You should read that order, whether it's an injunction order or a pretrial release order, and determine what it is that you are or aren't allowed to do. If you're looking at that piece of paper and you don't know what it means, you should not be waiting around for somebody to tell you. You need to contact an attorney so that they can explain to you what your boundaries are so you don't end up in jail. Some typical aspects of a no contact order or an injunction include the responsibility for the person who the order was entered against to not come into within 500 feet of the actual person who has filed the injunction or who the no contact order is related to, or their home, place of work, place of school, different areas like that where they often frequent. Some no contact orders will also include a second address. For example, if someone is often at their mother's house or something like that, they may also include that address. So that's what makes it so important that you read your no contact order. But what the requirement is that you do not intentionally come into contact with that person. So what do you do if you unintentionally come into contact with that person? If you walk into Publix and that person is there, you turn around and leave. If you walk across the street and realize the person is crossing you, walking the other way across the street, you walk as quickly as you can in the other direction. And you might even want to report to your pretrial release officer, for example, that, hey, I saw this person, we had no contact, it was unintentional, but I want to let you know just in case something happens. So being proactive in that regard will prevent you, for example, from being arrested if that person then calls the police and said, hey, they came within 500 feet of me. You've been proactive about that situation and your pretrial release supervisor already knows about it. So you just want to do your best to stay away from places that that person frequents. If the person that has an injunction or no contact order against you lives within your household, that makes it even more complicated. So for example, if you're charged with a domestic violence charge and that person is your wife or your husband or your significant other who you live with, the judge is going to order one of you, most likely the person who the order is entered against, to leave the home. You'll have to leave the home instantly upon the judge issuing the order and you being served. And the only time you can come back to the home is with a law enforcement officer one time to get your things after the judge has told you you can do so. So it puts you in a really bad position, I understand, if you live in the home with the person who has a no contact order against you. But in any event, you do have to obey that order because if you don't, again, you can end up in jail for a violation of that order, which puts you in a much worse position. So if you're in a situation where you have an injunction that's been filed or ordered against you, or you have a no contact order and you need help getting through that situation and managing what's going on in your life, whether it's a civil case as an injunction or a criminal case where you have a no contact order, you need to look into hiring an attorney. If you're interested in our services, you can reach us at joneslawjustice.com or by phone at 863-455-4811.